Nicaragua's historical background. Nicaragua is the largest of the Central American republics. Nicaragua can be characterized by its agriculture economy, its history of autocratic government, and its imbalance of regional development. Almost all settlement and economic activities are concentrated in the western half of the country. Lake Nicaragua is the largest lake in Central America. 19th century Nicaragua was plagued by civil wars and foreign interference. One of the two rival transportation businesses that operated in Nicaragua and Panama in 1855 became involved in that country's liberal-conservative conflict. In order to gain the upper hand in the business battle, the liberals brought in a tiny North American mercenary army under the direction of brave William Walker. When the rambunctious Tennessean took over, the plan went badly. Due to their identification with the outsider, Nicaragua's liberals became so hated that the conservatives reigned nearly unopposed until 1893.
The Revolution in Nicaragua. This revolution lasted decades long and killed 50,000 people. The Sandinistas were a socialist party led by Augusto Cesar Sandino, who led the resistance against the United States. The Sandinistas wanted to move the economy towards socialism in order to improve the lower class to build a democracy under their own leadership. This was the Sandinistas versus Somoza dictatorship. In 1979 and 1980, the Sandinistas had fairly good working relations with the U.S., but warily regarded the U.S. links to several thousand National Guardsmen who had escaped to Honduras and the U.S. In 1981, Reagan started to try and reverse the Nicaragua revolution and destabilize the Sandinista government. The U.S. wanted to isolate it from its neighbors in Central America. Nicaragua were the early victim as a manifest destiny guided U.S. hemispheric policy. Nicaragua were in a bad situation to start with because of the location which the U.S. used for strategic situations. The U.S. troops stayed in Nicaragua and they tried to pacify Nicaragua. The U.S. wanted to stop Nicaragua sharing resources through the canal and using them to hurt the U.S. Many cultural developments were made during this time, but the most important thing that was trying to be done was get rid of the Somoza dictatorship. In the end, the U.S. ended up helping Nicaragua's economy, but Reagan quickly put it to an end and started the war with them. Nicaragua left many government employees jobless.
The cost of fighting the war devastated the Nicaraguan economy and the people of Nicaragua, and it made their feelings very clear in the elections of 1990, as a coalition of 14 oppositional parties named UNO defeated the Sandinista party, which was under the leader of Daniel Ortega. The U.S. then lifted its trade embargo and promised help and aid for the war-torn country of Nicaragua. But the new President Violeta Barrios de Camargo faced huge problems. The Sandinistas were still a powerful force and controlled the armed forces and trade unions. Caramo's government did not have enough money to keep its promise to give land to the former Contras. But in the earlier 1990s, fighting broke out between the Contras and the Sandinista sympathizers. An agreement to end the fighting was reached in 1994.
Forces and Insurrection by Cole Evans. Nicaragua is a dictatorship. The people of Nicaragua lack most opportunities other countries would have. There are lots of hardships for citizens, and they don't get represented well in global forces. Their government thrives off of the fear factor of the citizens, and the citizens are told what to do. Their insurrection was a revolution against Nicaraguan dictatorship. Nicaragua underwent rapid industrialization and expansion of commercial export during the 1960s and early 1970s. Nicaragua had the biggest expansion of population in a short amount of time. With this growth in population, it made more Nicaraguans poor and the rich became richer. In Nicaragua, the income inequality was a huge problem. And also, earthquakes destroyed small businesses, and the very little middle-class citizens they had were now mostly all poor. They failed to keep up with the rapid workforce.
In contemporary Nicaraguan politics. Politics in Nicaragua have been an issue since the late 1900s until today. Many Nicaraguan believes democracy has been demolished and that the country is ruled by dictatorship. Daniel Ortega was a leader of Nicaragua from 1979 to 1990. He returned to power in 2006 and ruled the country ever since. The economic situation in Nicaragua is poor. The Ortega administration has been widely criticized for not being able to handle the economic situation. Many people argue Nicaragua has been running a one-sided election. In 2008, a backdrop of violent protests took place as there were allegations of fraud in the voting. In 2011, Ortega overruled the court even though Nicaragua constitution prohibited consecutive re-elections for presidency. Today, Daniel Ortega is continued to be known for silencing the opposition before the first vote is cast. He has consistently detained his opposition in elections. He has jailed political activists, journalists have been arrested, and protesters have been killed by the police.
Current event in Nicaragua. Inter-American Human Rights Court says Nicaragua is in contempt for disobeying its decisions regarding political prisoners. The Nicaraguan government was found in contempt of court by the Inter-American Human Rights Court on Tuesday. The court is a component of the Organization of American States, which Daniel Ortega, the president of Nicaragua, has pledged to leave. In 2021 and 2022, the court issued a number of decisions pertaining to the 46 Nicaraguans who had been detained by Ortega's government. They are regarded as political prisoners by the court. According to human rights organizations, there are currently 219 political prisoners in Nicaraguan prisons, many of whom are ill as a result.
Conclusion. In conclusion, Nicaragua went through many hardships like global forces and insurrection, the revolution, replacing the revolution, and contemporary Nicaraguan politics. Nicaragua and the U.S. continue to work with each other today, and Nicaragua itself is doing much better.